Being an empath is a double-edged sword. On one hand, you possess a rare and beautiful gift, the ability to feel life more deeply than almost anyone else. You can walk into a room and instantly know the mood, sense when someone is hurting before they even say a word, and offer a level of care that feels like a sanctuary. These are your greatest strengths, your unique way of navigating the world with a heart that is wide open. But let's be honest, when it comes to your love life, those same strengths can feel like a heavy burden that holds you back from the happiness you deserve. The problem starts when you stop being the one who cares and start becoming the one who is consumed. You feel everything, not just your own emotions, but the shifting moods, hidden anxieties, and suppressed frustrations of the person you're with. Because you are naturally wired to heal and harmonize, you often lose your footing, finding yourself swept away by a tide of energy that isn't even yours. You end up putting your partner's needs, feelings, and baggage at the very top of your priority list, often forgetting that you are a person with your own needs, your own limits, and your own right to be happy. When you care this much, you tend to attach quickly, diving headfirst into connections where your heart is fully exposed, while your partner might still be testing the waters. You try so hard to be the perfect partner, the supportive anchor, and the emotional savior, that you accidentally train the people you love to ignore your boundaries. You think that by giving more, you'll receive more, but instead you find yourself feeling drained, misunderstood, and eventually completely exhausted. It feels like you're trying to run a marathon while carrying the weight of another person's emotional life, and it's no wonder you feel like you're constantly struggling to keep your head above water. But today, we're going to strip away the confusion and stop the cycle of self-sacrifice. You don't have to keep choosing between your heart and your mental health. We are breaking down the 10 exact reasons why your empathy turns into an obstacle in relationships, and more importantly, how you can start reclaiming your own energy today. We're going to get real about the patterns, the mistakes, and the hidden traps that keep you stuck in heartache. If you've ever wondered why love feels harder for you than it does for everyone else, this is the breakdown you need. Stick with me until the very end, because the final point is the wake-up call that will finally make everything click into place and change the way you approach love forever. 1. You lack boundaries. You have a deep-seated, often desperate urge to make everyone around you happy. For you, saying no feels less like setting a limit and more like a personal failure or an act of betrayal. Because your empathy is so high, you subconsciously believe that it is your job to solve everyone's problems and carry their emotional burdens to keep the peace. When your partner is stressed, anxious, or angry, you don't just observe it, you absorb it. You take on their tension as if it were your own, thinking that if you just hold it for them, they will feel better and the relationship will stay stable. This is where you get lost. You start merging your identity with your partner's, losing the ability to tell where your needs end and theirs begin. To break this, you must learn to create a firm, non-negotiable, energetic boundary. Think of it like a personal bubble that only you can control. Throughout the day, especially during or after a heated moment, you need to pause and perform a reality check. Ask yourself, is this anxiety, grief, or anger actually mine? Or am I just wearing my partner's emotions? If it's theirs, you have to mentally and physically step back. You are not an emotional sponge meant to soak up their darkness. By holding your own space and refusing to take on what doesn't belong to you, you aren't being selfish. You are actually becoming a healthier, more grounded partner who has enough energy to share rather than someone who is constantly running on empty. 2. You require space. The most misunderstood trait of an empath is the absolute, non-negotiable need for solitude. You cannot function at your best if you are constantly plugged into another person's energy grid. You need time alone to disconnect, breathe, and reset your nervous system from the noise of the outside world. However, your partner likely doesn't have the same battery issues that you do. When you pull away to find that quiet space, they don't see a healing process. They see someone who is becoming cold, detached, or distant. They might take your need for alone time as a sign that you are losing interest in them, which creates a cycle of guilt where you then sacrifice your rest just to prove that you still care. This is particularly true when it comes to sleep. For many empaths, sharing a bed is an intense, draining experience because your subconscious remains on while you sleep, soaking up your partner's dreams, tossing, turning, and lingering stress. You might wake up feeling like you haven't slept at all, even after 8 hours. If you need to sleep in a different room, or even just have an alone zone in the house where you can go to be completely uninterrupted, you have to communicate this clearly. You must explain that this isn't about them, it's about your survival. If you don't define this need for solitude and frame it correctly, your partner will continue to misinterpret your need for air as a lack of love. Once you establish that your alone time is the fuel that keeps you present and loving when you are together, the relationship will finally have the breathing room it needs to thrive. 3. Intimacy feels exhausting. The paradox of being an empath is that while you crave deep, soul-level connection, the actual process of being intimate can leave you feeling completely hollowed out. Because you are naturally wired to give more than you have, you often pour every drop of your emotional energy into your partner, hoping to create that perfect, harmonious bond. But when you give away too much, you hit a state of empathic burnout faster than anyone else. You aren't just exhausted, you are overstimulated, like a computer running too many heavy programs at once. Because your brain is constantly processing your partner's unspoken feelings and subtle energy shifts, the vulnerability of intimacy can start to feel like an invasive force. When you feel this surge of overwhelm, your instinct is to run. You subconsciously pull away, creating distance, silence, or even coldness. Please understand, you are not cold and you don't lack love. You are simply trying to save your own nervous system from crashing. You are in survival mode, trying to shield yourself from a sensory overload that your partner probably doesn't even notice. The solution isn't to stop being intimate, but to find a partner who understands your internal reset button. You need someone who recognizes that when you retreat, you aren't leaving them, you are stepping away to recharge your battery so that you can return to them refreshed, grounded, and actually capable of enjoying their presence again. 4. You reject help. There is a strange protective armor that many empaths wear, the always the helper disguise. You are so accustomed to being the listener, the problem solver, and the emotional anchor for everyone else that the moment someone tries to do the same for you, you recoil. When your car breaks down, when you are stressed at work, or when you are having a mental breakdown, and your partner steps in to take charge or offer a solution, you might feel like they are intruding on your territory. You've spent so long being the one who keeps everything together that being helped feels uncomfortable, like you are suddenly losing your status as the strong one. You might even feel a subconscious guilt, as if accepting help is a burden you're forcing onto them. But here is the hard truth you need to hear. By refusing help, you are actually sabotaging the health of the relationship. A true partnership is a two-way street, not a one-way service where you are the only one holding the map. When you push them away, you are denying your partner the chance to show you they care, and you are effectively telling them that you don't trust them with your vulnerability. Accepting help is not a sign of weakness or a failure of your character. It is the ultimate act of trust. It is the bridge that turns two separate people into a team. If you keep holding all the weight, you will eventually collapse, and your partner will feel completely useless and disconnected from you. You have to learn to let them in, Let them carry some of the load, and realize that being supported is just as important as being the supporter. 5. You mirror your surroundings. As an empath, you are essentially a high-fidelity emotional mirror. If your partner walks into the room carrying the heavy, jagged energy of anxiety, depression, or deep frustration, you don't just watch them experience it, you download it. You feel it in your bones, in the tightness of your chest, and in the sudden, inexplicable shift in your own mood. It's not that you are trying to be dramatic. It's that your nervous system is wired to resonate with the vibrations of those closest to you. Even the most evolved, grounded, and awakened empath struggles to deflect this. You can be standing in the sunshine, perfectly content, but if your partner is trapped in a storm, you will feel the rain too. The reality is that you were born with a natural talent for transmuting energy, taking heavy, stagnant, or negative emotions and trying to turn them into something lighter or more positive. It is a beautiful gift, but it is also a dangerous trap if you don't know when to turn it off. You have somehow convinced yourself that it is your responsibility to act as an emotional filter for your partner, absorbing their darkness so they don't have to carry it. But you do not have to be a human sponge 24/7. When you mirror their pain without a filter, you lose the ability to be a source of strength for them. You stop being a partner and start becoming an echo. Remember, you cannot pull someone out of a hole if you have jumped in there with them. 6. You prioritize them over yourself. You have a habit of looking at your partner, seeing their quote-unquote empty cup, and deciding that the only way to save the relationship is to pour everything you have into them, even if it means leaving yourself completely dry. This is the root of the quote, people-pleaser trap. You become so hyper-focused on their well-being, their triggers, and their needs that you effectively erase your own. You start to walk on eggshells, biting your tongue when you disagree, or suppressing your own needs because you are terrified of the quote-unquote heavy energy that comes with a confrontation. You would rather suffer in silence and keep the peace than risk a moment of tension. But this is a losing strategy. When you consistently hide your own opinions and sacrifice your mental health just to manage their emotional state, you aren't being selfless, you are being self-destructive. You are teaching your partner that your feelings don't matter and that your comfort is secondary to their mood. This creates a lopsided relationship where you are constantly giving and they are constantly taking, often without even realizing what you are losing. You have to stop sacrificing your peace to keep them comfortable. It is not your job to manage their emotional reality, and it is certainly not your job to set yourself on fire just to keep them warm. True love is a meeting of two whole people, not a rescue mission where you lose yourself to keep them whole. You must prioritize your own emotional health, because if you aren't a whole person, you cannot be a part of a healthy, sustainable partnership. 7. You try to fix their emotions. Because you feel your partner's pain with such visceral intensity, you often fall into the trap of believing that you are responsible for curing it. When they are sad, angry, or anxious, it creates a physical discomfort within you that is almost impossible to ignore. In your mind, the fastest way to get rid of that discomfort is to fix their emotional state. You start offering unsolicited advice, trying to cheer them up, or actively changing your own behavior to steer their mood back to a neutral or positive place. While this impulse comes from a place of genuine love and a desire to see them happy, it often backfires spectacularly. To your partner, this doesn't feel like support. It feels like you're trying to manipulate or control their internal experience. When you constantly try to manage how they feel, you are subtly telling them that their emotions are something that needs to be corrected rather than heard. This can make your partner feel misunderstood, suffocated, or even resentful, because they aren't being allowed the space to simply feel their own feelings. You need to realize that your role as an empath is not to be a mechanic who repairs their emotional engine. It is to be a steady, safe harbor where they can land. Stop trying to regulate them. When they are struggling, you don't need to do anything other than show up, sit with them, and acknowledge that they are hurting. Let them be human, let them be messy, and let them process their own journey. When you release the need to fix them, you take the pressure off yourself and allow the relationship to breathe. 8. The little things haunt you. For a non-empath, a minor disagreement or a snarky, offhand comment is something that happens at 10 a.m. and is completely forgotten by lunch. But for you, the same event feels like a tectonic shift, an emotional earthquake that leaves you rattled for hours, if not days. You aren't being sensitive or dramatic. You are genuinely processing the subtext, the tone, and the underlying energy of the interaction. Because you can't just flip a switch and move on. You stay stuck in the emotional residue of the argument, replaying it in your head and wondering why your partner seems totally fine while you are still drowning in the hurt. This disparity can create a massive amount of strain, leaving you feeling like your partner doesn't care, while they might be completely oblivious to the fact that you're still hurting. Since you know that your brain processes these moments differently, you need to create a pre-agreed strategy for when things get heated. You cannot expect yourself to pick your battles in the moment when your system is already in full-blown defensive mode. Instead, set a rule. When a conversation starts to feel heavy or negative, you have the right to take a forced break. This isn't running away, it is a vital safety measure. Walk away, get some space, and do not, under any circumstances, try to process or fix the argument while you are still physically drowning in the feeling. Only return to the conversation once your nervous system has cooled down and you are back in your own body. By creating this buffer, you ensure that you aren't reacting from a place of pure, overwhelming emotion, and you give your partner a clear, healthy way to communicate that doesn't leave you feeling shattered. 9. Socializing drains you. By the time you reach the end of your day, your internal battery isn't just low, it is effectively at zero. Think about what your day actually looks like. You have been absorbing the stress of your coworkers, navigating the subtle moods of friends, and constantly reading the energy of everyone you encountered in the general public. For an empath, socializing isn't just talking. It is a high-level cognitive and emotional workout where you are constantly processing information that others don't even notice. When your partner proposes a spontaneous night out, they see it as fun and romantic, but your nervous system is screaming that it is a threat to your stability. This isn't laziness, and it certainly isn't a lack of love for your partner. It is a full-blown nervous system overload that requires immediate silence and solitude to repair. The key to fixing this friction is to stop treating your need for rest as a character flaw that you need to apologize for. You need to be proactive instead of reactive. Schedule your social engagements for days when you know your capacity will be higher, perhaps after a quiet morning or a day off. Be honest with your partner about why you can't always go out at the drop of a hat. Explain that your brain works differently and that a quiet night in isn't you being boring. It is you intentionally preserving your energy so that when you are with them, you can be present, attentive, and actually fun to be around. Once you stop apologizing for your limits and start managing your calendar to suit your biology, you will find that you have much more joy and excitement to offer your partner. 10. You are brutally honest. You have a beautiful, rare tendency to wear your heart on your sleeve. You don't like small talk or games. You crave deep, raw, soul-level truth. You want to talk about fears, dreams, and the hidden things that make people tick. The problem you run into is that most people live their lives on the surface, and they simply don't have the tools to handle the depth of transparency that you offer. When you open up and show them your true, vulnerable core, they might react with confusion, defensiveness, or just a blank stare. This leads to a crushing sense of isolation. You get frustrated when they can't meet you at your level, and eventually, you stop trying altogether and withdraw into a shell of silence, convinced that real connection is impossible for you. If this is your story, please listen. Do not lose hope, and definitely do not harden your heart. You aren't too much, and you aren't broken. You are simply operating on a frequency that the average person hasn't learned to tune into yet. When people fail to meet you there, it is not a reflection of your worth, but a sign of their own limitations. You are seeking a soul-level connection, and you shouldn't have to apologize for wanting that. Keep being your honest, authentic self, because that is the only way you will ever find someone who actually speaks your language. The right person won't be intimidated by your depth. They will be relieved to finally have found someone who can swim in the same deep waters as them. What is one boundary you've struggled to set in your current relationship? Drop a comment below. I read every single one.